We tend to associate making a photographic image by capturing it in a fraction of a second. This is usually the case, but the camera can allow us to choose many different exposure settings from a fraction of a second to multiples of minutes and even hours. One of the skills of a seasoned photographer is to be able to choose a subject and have a good idea of how the final image will look in a magazine or on a gallery wall. My photographic work has essentially been producing imagery in a documentary genre. Capturing people as a fly-on-the-wall photographer usually needs a quick shutter speed to record detail, expressions on faces, body posture and gestures. I've been lucky enough to be involved in professional photography for more than 30 years, and during the past 10 years I've enjoyed photographing the landscape. We can adopt many technical exposure tricks, but the skill is in using them to create the ultimate image. An image that records the moment when the camera shutter is open is a fascination for me. I'm not a supporter of carrying a number of lenses. I prefer to move closer or further away from the subject. I feel a choice of lenses complicates the situation, and while you decide which focal length lens suits the scene, the light is changing and the image will be lost. Selecting the subject to capture on film should be the most important factor to creating a photographic image, because you have to set up your tripod and commit to making a fairly lengthy exposure. The ideal lighting for long exposure photography is either dawn or dusk. The quality of light is wonderful, and also the light is limited, thus giving the long exposure. We think of long exposure photography only being used in landscape or night photography, but there are many instances where you can use extended shutter exposures. I enjoy using artificial light and introducing it into the image during the exposure. Yes, there is HDR, but creating the perfect exposure in the taking stage of the process is much more realistic. I shot this image on a 3-minute exposure using multiple flash to light the shadow areas. I walked around the photograph, setting off the flash gun on manual. Because I moved each time I released a flash, the film did not record me at all. Photography means painting with light. I have on numerous occasions photographed underground in coal mines. Because batteries are not allowed underground, I used wet cell helmet lamps to paint the miners with light. The exposures were between 10 and 15 seconds, so I asked the miners to stay still while I painted them with light. Coal production was being lost, so I didn't have much time to create the images. If I shoot colour, I use a neutral density filter to extend the exposure. If I shoot black and white, however, I use a red filter which lightens its own colour and darkens its opposites. This increases the contrast of the image and makes it more dramatic. These are just a few examples working with long exposure, actually on commissioned assignments. The list, however, is endless.